First things first, back here talking KD and Kyrie. Bad beat for both Nets superstars. Their former teams back in the finals. I mean, first, the sour taste of the season ending in a sweep, in parentheses, even though it was a close sweep, Chris Broussard, on parentheses. And now this.
Absolutely.
Have to bring Fox Sports NBA analyst RIc Bucher in for this one. Rick, is it a bad look for KD and Kyrie that their former teams are meeting in the finals?
No, it is not a bad look, Jenna, any more than if it was a bad look that they left those franchises and went to start their own startup in Brooklyn, and it hasn't turned out maybe the way that they or anybody else anticipated. But the reason that Kevin Durant left the Golden State Warriors wasn't because he thought they were not going to win any more championships. It was because he never thought that he was going to get the credit for playing the role that he did in winning championships with Golden State, and wanted to go someplace where he might. With Kyrie Irving, you're asking me to tell you what Kyrie Irving's thinking was? I can't possibly give you that. But again, from what I've heard, it had more to do with his disagreements with Danny Ainge and a conflict there than it had to do with his disbelief in what the Boston Celtics were or were capable of. So if you want to bag on them for leaving those franchises that had demonstrated an ability to win and win championships, to go to this startup in Brooklyn, have at it. But we could have been talking about that for the last few years. The fact that these two teams are in the finals is some sort of indictment on these two guys. I'm not going there. They left for different reasons other than their ability to win championships.
I agree with half your point, Rick. I think the criticism of KD here is unfair. And if I'm Kevin Durant watching sports television, as he is wont to do, I'm a little angry about this discussion. It's like, wait a minute, guys. You guys all crushed me, said I ruined the NBA for going to Golden State. You wanted me to leave. I left, and now you're like, oh, what an idiot. Look at how many titles he could have won. It's like, yeah, and you guys all said those titles wouldn't count. So what do you want me to do? Was just, did I just have the original sin of going to Golden State, then no matter what I did the rest of my career, I wasn't going to make up for it? So I would understand if KD was frustrated by this. Kyrie's thing is different, however, because the Celtics were a conference finalist without him. They stunk with him, and they immediately were a conference finalist and now NBA finalists without him. And I would argue if Kyrie had stayed, they would not be here. So the history is the Celtics make the finals in 2017 without Kyrie Irving. They then trade for Kyrie Irving in 2018, but he gets injured, and they make the conference finals without him. He's then finally healthy in 2019, and they get annihilated in round 2 by Milwaukee with Kyrie Irving, the final few games of that series, shooting like 38% and demanding to guard Giannis. Kids, I promise that happened. Look it up. He said, I've got Giannis of all the people. He couldn't guard Thanasis. He wanted Giannis. So then he leaves there. Boston immediately makes another conference finals. They go back to the conference finals without him, and now they're in the NBA finals without him. So I don't think, I think these are not the same situations. Durant, when he was with Golden State, they weren't out in round 2. They were juggernauts. They were winning titles. Yes, obviously, Golden State is showing they can make the finals with or without Durant. But I think the Kyrie thing is totally separate.
Well, look, to Rick's point, I don't begrudge any player for leaving for personal reasons. All right, if you feel like you're happier somewhere else, more power to you. But from a basketball standpoint, and Rick, you said it, Durant left to show he didn't think he was going to get credit for the championships he won in Golden State. Okay, this actually makes that argument stronger. Okay, now those that won't give him credit for those rings, and we've seen all-time greats, Clyde Frazier, say there's an asterisk by his championships. We've seen others kind of belittle those. For Charles Barkley saying he didn't drive the bus, even though he was their best player. This is going to embolden that argument. All right, because now it's like, if they win it, I've said it, they already proved they could get to a finals without him. And they won it in 2015. Some write it off because of the injuries to Cleveland, Kyrie and Kevin Love. But them winning this championship would kind of strengthen that argument that any good all-star player could have went to Golden State and won those titles. Now, what you can't argue is that Golden State is better without Durant. When he was there in 17 and 18, it was academic, right? We knew it was over. They were winning the championship, period, even though Houston gave him a nice series. That's the problem Kyrie's facing, Wilds. Boston's better without him. Now, Marcus Smart is not as good as Kyrie Irving, but it's about chemistry and it's about fit and maybe personality and all that in the locker room. Whatever the reason, they are better without Kyrie Irving, and that is something he's going to have to wear. Doesn't mean Smart's better. Allen Iverson was better than Chauncey Billups, but Denver was better with Billups, went to the conference finals. So it happens sometimes, and Kyrie's going to have to wear that because clearly they don't miss him at all.
Okay, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad look, and I'll throw this to you, Rick. I don't think it's a bad look for either Kyrie or KD. I think KD looks at him like, this kind of stinks. And I think Kyrie looks at it like, I was on that team. But I think there's one guy that looks at it and says, whoa, wait a second here. I want to be in this spot. And that's Joe Tsai. I think when Joe Tsai got both of these guys, it was like, you know what? I am going to be a major player in the NBA. I love basketball. I've got this team. I want to compete right away. I want to take over New York. I've got some superstars here. And then to see both of their former teams go to the finals, that would irk me more so than it would either KD or Kyrie. That's my take. Do you feel like there's that ownership groups and management groups, and I'll throw Sean Marks in there, will feel a little extra pressure watching the Celtics and the Warriors go to the finals?
Yeah, I think there is some of that. Brand new owners all want to go win a championship. Not only just win a championship, but prove to all the other owners that they know how to reinvent the wheel and that they have the secret sauce coming from their other organizations. And then they find out how expensive it is and how, what a challenge it is and how arduous it is to deal with those superstars. And they go, you know what, I can take a couple years off. I've got my ring, I'm good. Mark Cuban, example one when it comes to that. But I'm glad, Nick, that you agreed with half of mine. I guess I'm in a different place when it comes to Kyrie because, to say that this is a bad look is to say that Kyrie had a good look at any point in the last several years. When did Kyrie look good? In a Boston uniform, out of a Boston uniform, at any point since he left Cleveland, when have we looked at Kyrie and said, man, you know what? It's looking good. Oh, now the Boston is winning without him. I just feel as if Kyrie can't look any worse with anything that has happened with him.
Oh, well.
And so that's where I don't see this really having an impact.
Listen, I guess my argument would be Celtics, the spot they've been searching for is point guard. They had Horford. He left. He came back. They had a number one defense 4 years ago. They have a great defense again. They had Tatum and Brown. Now, obviously, Tatum and Brown have gotten older and matured as players. But you could, on the flip side of that, you could say they don't have the depth of the roster 1 through 10 that they had, for example, in 2017 or maybe even 2018. The difference is point guard play. So whether or not Kyrie cares about this is a separate discussion. But I do, just like I said earlier in the playoffs, I forget which series it was, but that if I'm trying to win basketball games, I would rather have Drew Holiday than Kyrie Irving. No matter whose bag is bigger or no matter whose skills are rated higher on the latest NBA 2K, if you're the Boston Celtics, it is unequivocal. You would rather have Marcus Smart than Kyrie Irving. That's not even an argument. There is no, the counterpoint. No, we've seen it both ways. One was an utter disaster. The other has now won Defensive Player of the Year, even if that was a shaky vote, and has been a key cog, I would argue the third most important piece on this team making the finals. And that's where, that's to me where it's a bit of indictment, not on Kyrie's decision, but on Kyrie the player. On how effective of a basketball player are you well, you're not as effective as Marcus Smart.
But is this a revelation? I guess that's my only part here. Like, is this a discovery that Kyrie Irving is problematic when it comes to women? What's that?
No, but going into this year, I don't think anybody would have said, yeah, I think you're better off with Marcus Smart than Kyrie Irving. Generic NBA Team X. I don't think anybody would have said, give me Marcus Smart over Kyrie. And now, I think if you're being fair and objective, you have to say that.
Okay, but I don't know that Marcus Smart, the trade out Marcus Smart for Kyrie Irving is the only change with these Boston Celtics. Bringing Al Horford back was key. You have a different head coach. Like,
coaching change.
I believe there's too many other parts here to say that it's simply that is the switch that made the difference, and now Marcus Smart looks like he's more of a winner than Kyrie Irving. That's my only issue here, and I think the broader thing is that Kyrie simply hasn't looked good for a while. This is more confirmation.